Let's move on to some of your other fighters. Nicola Adams, we've heard, has just been ruled out of her world title shot with an injury. Could you just tell us a bit more about the injury and what the prognosis is?
Yeah, just overuse of her shoulder, and it was twinging on the pads. I mean, she's 34. She's a very good fit 34 and healthy. And these type of fights, you can't take risks. She's an elite level athlete, and when they're saying they've got a niggle, you've got to pay attention to that. And she could probably fight with it, but if anything goes wrong, there's going to be questions asked afterwards, and we've got to look after the best interests of the fighter. So Frank's going to reschedule that. She's been in the gym, she's in a good place, she's looking fit, but we just don't want to go into that fight with an injury.
Jake Ball, obviously, he's been at your gym, suffered a disappointment last time out against Craig Richards. Have you spoken to him much since? How's he been?
Yeah, we spoke to him. It's one of those things, you can do it in the gym. He looked $1 million. He was sparring Billy Joe Saunders. He had some great sparring as a cruiserweight guy. But, sometimes you just don't reproduce that on the night, and that's what happened. And, he's going to have a sit down, a long think about his career, because boxing's a hard game. You can't be in it for the fun of it. You've got to be in it for a reason. I'm not saying he's not cut out for it, but he's got to take a good long look at himself and see where he wants to be. He's got kids, he's got a family, he's got other businesses. You can't be in this boxing for the stardom and the fame. You've got to be in it for the fortune, because when your career's finished at 31, 32, you've got to have money in the bank. So we'll see. We'll have a sit down and a talk. But at the end of the day, the decision's going to be his.
Kid Galahad, obviously, been confirmed now he's going to be fighting Josh Warrington next. Warrington's not giving the belt up. Frank said date's going to be announced within a week's time. How kind of revved up is Kid Galahad now?
Well, this has been coming a long time. He went to Boston, won a world title eliminator against a very awkward customer. And in his mind, it's his destiny to win this title. He says, I'm following the path of Nazim Ahmed. He won the IBF against Tom Johnson. And, in his mind, he's talking about it's written for me to win this, all the things, me coming to this gym, the Ingle gym, meeting Naz in a mosque in Sheffield and saying, go to that gym at 14 years old. It's coming to a head, and I think in his mind, it's not a given, but he's got his mind focused and set on winning that title. Warrington's beaten twice in the amateurs. Barry spotted him a few times as a pro. And, I think the only person who's giving Galahad a chance in this fight is actually Josh Warrington himself, because he knows there's all these other people around Josh Warrington slapping him on the back for beating Lee Selby and beating Frampton. But we've had Lee Selby at the gym, sparring Barry. You can get a measure of that. I'm not going to say how it goes. It's well documented that Lee Selby was struggling like mad for the weight. I can remember him, training for that fight, coming to Sheffield and thinking he's struggling with the weight. Frampton, when he boxed Josh Warrington, wasn't the best version of Frampton. He'd had the hard fights in America. His first comeback fight in Ireland wasn't great. So he beat Donaire, which was a good performance. But anybody who can box, Donaire wasn't the fighter he was. So the wins for me, they were good wins on his record, but they weren't the peak Lee Selby's and the peak Framptons that Josh Warrington beat. So, and I think he knows that. And it's going to be a more difficult fight than everybody around him expects him. But I know Warrington will prepare properly, and it's very difficult after you've been in big fights over the last 12 months to pick yourself up again, to fight somebody that really doesn't want to fight, because in his mind, he's beat these great guys, these good fighters, and he wants to be fighting, higher level fighters than Galahad. And it's always that type of, in boxing, you don't want to be fighting them kids that you consider below. You want to be reaching up to the stars and fighting kids who are going to challenge you. He wants to go over to America, box Valdez, Leo Santa Cruz, them type of fighters. Or, the guys at featherweight who are going to give him a challenge. I'm going to motivate him to the next level. He's sat in his nice house in Leeds with his family and his missus, and somebody will be massaging his feet. He's the champ. It's a bit like watching the Rocky movies. And Galahad's hungry. You've seen him, where he lives, where he's from, how long he's been.
It's a bit Naz Barrera so far.
Well, he does. And the thing is, you can never underestimate anybody. But on paper, for a lot of people, this is probably a 60-40, 70-30 fight. But for Warrington knows it's a 50-50 fight, and it doesn't matter what he says. You can see he's already rattled the stuff he's been saying. If it was that easy a fight, he should just smile, say, yeah, no problem, we'll see on the night. But he's not. He's getting riled. He doesn't really want this fight. But it's a fight he's got to have if he wants to keep the belt. I think if there was another option, he would have taken the other option. And I think other options were discussed, but it just didn't come to fruition. And we'll see if he comes through this and beats Galahad. Fair play to him. It's a 50-50 fight in my opinion.